Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Okay, so coming to mind is a verse that in yesterday's class, Mother Malini referred to. So let's study Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, entitled Conclusion, Perfection of Renunciation. And let's study text 61. Text 61. Today's November 19th, 2022. November 19th, 2022. Text 61, Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay. Hare Krishna. Ishvara Sarva
Bhutanam
Videshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmaya Sarva Bhutani Yantra Avudani Mayaya. This is an oft-quoted verse from Srila Prabhupada. If Hare Krishna Rasa Sindhu Prabhupada. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Videshe Arjuna Tishtati Ramayan Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Videshe Arjuna Tishtati Ramayan Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Videshe Arjuna Tishtati Ramayan Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya
Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam
Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam
Videshe Arjuna Tishtati
Videshe Arjuna Tishtati
Ramayan Sarva Bhutani
Ramayan Sarva Bhutani
Yantra Rudhani Mayaya
Yantrarudhani Mayaya
Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam
Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam
Arjuna Tishtati
Videshe Arjuna Tishtati
Ramayan Sarva Bhutani
Ramayan Sarva Bhutani
Dani Mayaya
Yantrarudhani Mayaya. Would someone online like to recite the verse?
Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam
Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam
Ardishrajuna Tastyati
Tishtati
Ramayan Sarva Bhutani
Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani
Yantrayutahani Mayaya.
Yantrarudhani Mayaya. Okay. We'll go to the word for word meanings. Ishvara,
Ishvara,
the Supreme Lord,
the Supreme Lord,
Sarva Bhutanam,
Bhutan,
of all living entities,
of all living entities,
Videshe,
Videsha,
in the location of the heart,
in the location of the heart,
Arjuna,
Arjuna,
O Arjuna,
Arjuna,
Tishtati,
Tishtati,
resides,
resides,
Brahmayan, causing to travel,
causing to travel,
Sarva Bhutani,
Sarva Bhutani,
all living entities,
all living entities,
Yantra,
Yantra,
machine,
machine,
Arudani,
Bhutani,
being so placed,
being so placed,
Mayaya, under the spell of material energy.
under the spell of material energy.
Translation. In all 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita and 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam and all the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita are completely transcendental. And this is a verse from Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada references a lot. So we can say it's especially important for us. 700
700 and 18,000
in Bhagavatam. Yeah. At one point I did account for Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's not clear for me. Okay, translation. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Arjuna was not the supreme knower, and his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited discretion. Lord Krishna instructed that the individual is not all in all. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, or He Himself, Krishna, the localized supersoul, sits in the heart directing the living being. After changing bodies, the living entity forgets his past beings. But the supersoul, as the knower of the past, present, and future, remains the witness of all his activities. Therefore, all the activities of living entities are directed by this supersoul. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the supersoul. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car. The living entities, the drivers, may be the same. Similarly, by the order of the Supreme Soul, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity to work according to his past desires. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The individual is always under his control. Therefore, his duty is to surrender. And that is the injunction of the next verse. Om Ganatmirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gorange Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tayubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Bhagavad Gita chapter 18 text 61. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Videsha Junatishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantrivudani Mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So, 32 syllables, one verse, and there's so much there. There's so many factors in this one verse. There's the Supreme Lord, and then there's the super soul expansion in the heart, and then there's the whole concept of the heart, and then Arjuna, and then material energy and the relationship between all these factors. So, okay. All right, so in philosophy and social science and psychology, there's often the discussion or the debate around voluntarism or determinism. Okay, and one idea is no, we're actually like machines, and everything is reductionistic, mechanistic, and deterministic. And then like no, and like in psychology, whether you go into the Freudian type psychology, the id, the ego, and the superego, or behaviorism, they're deterministic models. Okay, either we're controlled by these unconscious drives, or we're controlled by external stimuli. Okay, then once you get into like the more humanist type of psychological approaches, Gestalt, person-centered reality therapy, then you get to no, we have volition, we have free will. All right, and so this is like a debate in philosophy going back centuries and millennia. And so it's really elegantly resolved in this verse. It really is. It really is. And then and then that resolution is expanded upon throughout Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So both of those views have their validity. Okay, and so basically, back in my PhD dissertation days, we developed the Vedic personality inventory, 3 modes of 3. So it's all elegantly and eloquently resolved if we understand the nature of the 3 modes. Okay, and so Yantru, a machine. So basically, the nature of the self, right? Just so we're all together here. So here online, there's Bhakti and Kelly and Anasuya and Anandini, Parampara, and Bhakti Devin and Bhakti and Kim and Lakshmi Priya and Garuda, and perhaps Damayanti's around there too. And here with me, and we're attempting that this is an ashram, a place where spiritual life really happens. There's a Mother Malini and Rasa Sindhu Prabhu. And so to the extent that we identify and associate with and allow ourselves to be influenced by the modes of tamas and rajas, then we're like machines. Just like, lower spirit soul in the body of a blade of grass or a dog, a lower species. it's practically just like now I'll smell here, and now the root will go for that drop of wood or there, and because it's like mostly ignorance, okay, mostly ignorance, and we can see that to the extent that I'm associating with ignorance, then okay. Then now I'm just going to turn off the alarm clock, and I'm just going to sleep. I'm controlled by desire to sleep, controlled by desire to click here and there. Okay. So then the deterministic reductionist mechanistic approaches, they have validity. Okay. And to the extent that we associate with the sattva gun, and even more potently, the Shuddha sattva, that's the power of bhakti, then the natural free will, self-determination of the spirit soul is manifest, is radiant and is available. So then you have the voluntarism and free will and self-determination. Then that's valid. Then that's valid. And yeah, it can feel kind of like one of those horror movies, like we're just stuck on a machine and okay, right. So material life, particularly in lower modes, it's like a horror movie. Okay. And Mamu Peche Tukantia Dugalaya Mashashvatam Natmubanti Mahatmana Samsatim Paramam Gata. So Krishna says, this is a temporary place full of misery. And so much of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, everything Prabhupada's getting is like the material context, like this bad news. And it's like, we can laugh, but like, no, this is really suffering and torment. And the avranatmika aspect of Maya is here to convince us you're having a great time. You really, like the pig and stool is like, I'm happy. I got my slop, and I got piglets, and I got my wife pig, and it's just, you're going to be taken to the slaughterhouse. You're eating feces. It's like, no, but for the pig, no, got it. No. So, and then we use those terms like avoidance strategies for survival, avoiding pain, and whether it's internet or shopping and spending money we don't need, or alcohol, or emotional eating, or sex, or losing control of my temper. These are all to run away from the experience of pain and emptiness and hollowness that comes from misidentifying the radiant spirit self with the machine, with the machine. So to get, not just to be depressed, but to get like, this is suffering and torment. This is like that. And like, let's get out of machine life. Let's awaken to just like we can often used analogy of Sadhaputta Prabhu wrote, the world is virtual reality, right? And so it's quite a brilliant book there, the world is virtual reality. And so just like a virtual mirror, you hook up your senses, and okay, like that. I think we can think, I said, I'm this character, and think, wow, my character's doing well, my character's popular, my dad just made $1 million, right? But someone with objective vision can see like, wow, you're just like pale, you're fading away, you obviously like, you need some sunlight. Like, sunlight? What do you mean? It's a glorious world in here. Like, that's just a machine. Come on, get to the real sun, get to the real trees. Real trees? No, there's trees right here, and no, that's not the real thing. So similarly, the real trees, the real sun, that's actually the virtual reality. So there is, so our real life is the life of bhakti, is the life of self-realization, realizing who we are as the driver of the car. Prabhupada just brilliant. All the analogies we use, borrow from Srila Prabhupada. Right, so Prabhupada uses the car analogy, right? We're not the car, we're the driver of the car. The cars are equal. And so according to our karma, a misconception is karma supports like a victim-y type approach to life. The opposite is true. In the foreword of our book, Relationships That Work, in the second edition, it's written by Peter Burwash. He was he passed away. He passed away recently, Peter Burwash, and he was a touring tennis pro. In the recent Sappho 3 course, I said he roomed with Arthur Ashe, and everyone looked at me with blank stares. I said, "Anyone ever hear of Arthur Ashe?" They all nodded. So I thought, yeah, this body is getting pretty old, I guess. Anyhow, Arthur Ashe, he was regarded as the finest human being on the tennis tour as far as character. So Peter Burwash would talk like his criticism. He was a great tennis player too, but he was like the finest human being as far as qualities. He was regarded that way. Anyhow, so I said, well, Peter Burwash also coached Serena Williams. Now you've all heard of Serena Williams, and yeah, we've heard of Serena Williams. Okay, all right. So, Burwash writes in the foreword. He writes in the foreword that he regarded himself as a very selfish, self-absorbed person. And then he was in a tough place in life. He had just been cheated out of a whole lot of money by a so-called friend and business partner, so-called friend. And he said, and then at that point, he met a spiritual teacher who told him the 2 most important things he ever heard. Now, he doesn't say it in the foreword, but the spiritual teacher is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who Burwash met in Mayapur, India, 76 or 77. And the 2 most important things: 1, spiritual life begins when you understand the law of karma. 2, don't be angry at the instrument of your karma. So spiritual life begins with the law of karma. What Prabhupada's saying there, as I understand it, what Prabhupada's saying there is karma is it's actually the philosophy of radical 100% personal responsibility, right? And once we get that, this whole human context, the material context, not just like, oh, I should accept it, but I'm the source of it, including this very body, including the circumstances of my birth. I'm the source of it based on my desires and what I desire, what I deserve. I'm the source of it. And so Prabhupada's saying to Burwash, once you get that, okay, then we can begin spiritual life. Until we get that, then we're going to moan and complain and like, it's not fair and this and that. Then we waste the human form. Okay. So yeah, so according to how much money we pay, we'll get a fast motor car or a slow motor car. That's what Prabhupada's saying here. And the drivers are equal. The driver in the blade of grass, the spirit soul in the blade of grass, the spirit soul in the Porsche, in the mansion, in the ghetto. The spirit souls and all living entities are the same. Okay, so to get the nature of what we call the material context, like this is machine life. It's like a horror movie. Okay, there's so many just like horrible, potent analogies here. Machine. Prahlad Maharaj says, "Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi upe." Yeah. He says like I've fallen into a pit of snakes. Okay, and we imagine, or we sing every morning, Samsara Davanalita Loka Chanaka Vanya Ganaganatham Baptasika Yana Gunarnavasya Vande Guru Shri Sharanarvindam. Right? Like we're caught in a blazing fire. So the Vaishnavacharyas, Prahlad Maharaj, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they're not just like being poetic or something. Like the idea is like, imagine if like we're in a forest and it's fire all around. Like it's horrifying. It's horrifying. Right? This is, like that. We're in a pit of snakes. Okay. Or was it Hari Hari Vipule Janama Gunainu Manushya Janma Pai Radhakrishna Na Bhajiya Janiya Sunya Bisha Kainu. It says like, yeah, I have a human form and I wasted it because I've not used it to serve Radha and Krishna. And so it's like I'm knowingly drinking poison. I'm knowingly drinking poison. Like, what a fool to get it. And then the idea is not to just be depressed, but then, okay. So now the Supreme Lord, we de share Juna Tishtati. This is a theme said many times in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna saying that Krishna, sometimes he talks about in your heart. Sometimes he talks third person, the super souls in your heart. There's an expansion of God sitting right next to us in the region of the heart. Okay. When we talk about, like soon in 3 days, we start another coach training. And, you know, in our coach training, principles and practices of transformative coaching, you know, over the practically 10, 11 months, we go through so many skills and principles and methods. And we'll often say, the purpose of all of it is to support the client or the human being or ourselves in self-coaching or our mom or dad or family, whoever we're talking to or the guy at the post office, to support people, to connect with the highest guidance within. What's that mean? It means this verse. The technical term is the Paramatma, the super soul. That's some call it intuition, some call it higher intelligence. Okay, they're different, but it's technically it's the super soul. Okay, so we connect with the highest guidance within. Then all those disturbances from the machine and the poison and the blazing fire and the snakes, they're still there, but we're not disturbed by them. Tatenu kampam sumami suksami shamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam vivadva popir vitadana namaste jigeta yomukti pade sadayabak. That okay, then we respond. That we're not pretending that this is a beautiful world. Neither are we running to the forest. No, we respond to the disturbance of the material context with deepened inspiration and enthusiasm to connect with the highest guidance within, to fulfill our eternal dharma of serving God, serving Krishna with love and devotion. And then it's a beautiful experience. Because then we're responding to the disturbances in such a way where we're getting out of the prison, we're getting off the machine. Okay, like that. In this situation, I'll talk about this heart, because heart, I mean, it can be metaphorical, because like, okay, well, there's that organ that pulsates like that. At the same time, it's very real, because that's where the soul, that's us, where we are living and sitting right next to us is the super soul. Krishna says in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Kshetra Gyam Chapi Mam Vidi Sarvik Kshetra Ishu Bharata Kshetra Gyanam Gyanor Yatat Gyanam Matam Mama. Krishna says in the 13th chapter, in the body, there's two people, there's two persons. There's the soul, and then there's the super soul, the Paramatma. And so Prabhupada's emphasizing, like, we're not independent. This is such an important point, because so much in personal growth and transformation, it's about independence and freedom. And we focus there, certainly in our programs, we focus there. Freedom, independence. Yeah, don't be dependent. Don't be dependent. Be independent. And then sometimes we say, and sometimes it shocks people, sometimes we say in coach training, like, and the nature of the self, the nature of the core self, the diamond self, the nature of the self is to be dependent. Dependent. Yep, that's the nature. Sorry to tell you. I'm not really sorry to tell you. So our choice is where to direct our propensity for dependency, where to take shelter. And to the extent that we direct it, I'm dependent on this part of the machine. this part of the reflected banyan tree, to use the 15th chapter analogy. Yeah, then we'll be in anxiety, and then we'll have all the grungy stuff and fear and depression and envy and jealousy. And to the extent that we direct our unavoidable propensity for dependency on supersoul, on devotional service, on serving that which will never be crushed by time, then we're peaceful, we're satisfied. Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Ate Eva Shantu. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shantu. So as long as we have desires that are not devotional service, and Prabhupada sometimes said devotional service to Krishna, it's not really a desire, it's the natural expression of the soul. Once again, to desires related to the machine of material energy, and I'm going to control this, then I'll be happy, always chasing that carrot on a stick. Then we won't be peaceful. Again, it's just like law of gravity. If we drop something, it'll fall. You're saying you're good, bad, right, wrong, what's better, we don't even know that, we don't need to go to comparatives. It's just we retain material desires, separate from self-realization and Krishna consciousness. Then it's like a GPS, right? We're going to experience alienation. We use this quote a lot from St. Augustine. We're not punished. We're not punished for sin. We're punished by sin. We'll experience shame. We'll experience resentment, etc., etc. And that's a message, like, direct the desires, direct the propensity for dependency to serving Krishna through his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. And then, okay, now like the fish is happy in water. I'll mention, okay, this is hard. This is, back in the 90s, mid 90s even, we started the Vedic personality inventory studies. And then right after that, as part of our doctoral program, we started the Mahamantra studies. We started with a single system design, and then we went to a group design, 3 groups, control group, Mahamantra group, and a bogus mantra group. Means they thought it was a real mantra, but it wasn't. Deception in the name of science. Who knows how many lifetimes in hell I'll need to, but all for knowledge. So, okay. And of course, we did a whole literature review, and now the past 25 years, that literature about meditation research has, really expanded exponentially. But even starting in the 60s till the 90s, there was a lot. And so that we did a literature review. There wasn't much on mantra. There was nothing on Mahamantra. That's why there was a big gap. The most recommended mantra from the ancient Vedas is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as described in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. Iti Shada Shakam Nam Nam Kali Kama Shano Shano. That this Mahamantra, composed of 16 words, 32 syllables, is most recommended for self-realization in this age. Okay. So there was no scientific studies on the Mahamantra. I mean, lots of anecdotal studies, like you got all these devotees on the street corners in ecstasy, like, wow, something works there. Okay. But then, so we were, we were the first to, scientifically study. And, okay, and then in more recent years, a team headed by Dr. Gopal Damarla. He's in the Denver area. He's in Colorado. And right, so there's more study, and then so there's, of course, been lots of study on meditation, like the brain waves. Okay, I'm relating this to this verse, to like brain waves. And I'm not an expert in that, but I did some literature review. And then actually, and in one sense, I was never inspired by all the brainwave studies like that. And then, okay, so then Dr. Damarla, he's a physician. He's a physician at the Veterans Hospital in Golden, Colorado. And then he started his studies, and I'm involved as a consultant like that. And in 2017, there was a publication of these studies in a major medical journal. Actually, because of that publication and more publications to come, physicians can actually prescribe chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to patients.
Wow.
They can do that legitimately and ethically, just like physicians. Like if there's a certain body of literature in respected journals on a type of meditation, physicians can prescribe. I just want to say that. Important point, yeah. And right now there's extensive studies on Maha Mantra going on in Rishikesh and also some universities in the USA. So anyhow, but these studies, which are my studies, were like psychological and self-rating tests on stress and life, and the VPI and sattva levels and rajas and depression levels and stuff like that. So these more recent studies, it wasn't on brain waves, which I was happy about. It was on HRV, heart rate variability, which is a sign of heart wellness, the heart organ. Now, in one sense, say, well, you can choose so many physiological things and see how chanting this mantra and that mantra, how it affects. But it really makes sense that if we're studying like the quintessential Bhakti mantra, we're going to study the heart instead of the brain. Not that, I'm not against brain studies, but I'm just saying like where to focus. Because Bhakti is all about the heart. It's all about the devotion of the heart. Right? So it makes sense. And what I've read in the literature, again, it's not my field of expertise, but what they've discovered in recent years is that, to summarize, the heart is more of a brain than the brain. Because the idea was like, okay, looks for like, the headquarters, the central command control, that's the brain. But they found that there's like, in subtle ways, there's more nerve endings and signals from the heart than there is the brain. So like the heart's more of the, it's more of a brain than the brain. And this is like maybe just the past 15 years that they're discovering this. So it's very fascinating. And it confirms that, yeah, studies on the effects of Bhakti, it makes more sense to focus on heart. And it confirms the ontology of this verse, okay? So that, okay, the soul situated in the region of the heart, and the super soul situated in the region of the heart. So this is really the central command. This is really the central command, from that region of the body. I mean, we're not the body still, it's important to understand the body. So that's a bit of a divergence there, but I see it as relevant. And so, so that Prabhupada closes the purport. Therefore, his duty is to surrender, and that is the injunction of the next verse. So, okay, so we get clear, perfect means not influenced by the material context, not influenced by the propensity for cheating, for limitations, for mistakes, for illusions, not influenced by disturbances from the mind, the body, by disturbances from eating, sleeping, mating, defending, not influeed by the modes of nature. And so, it was just this one, Mother Malini, you gifted me recently this nifty player where we can just so easily play Prabhupada all the time. So this morning when I was just getting up, taking care of myself, so there's a lecture, Prabhupada was, he was singing and then giving a talk on Bhaja Hare Mana Sri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Dindare, like that, Durlabhamana Janam Satsami Taro E Baba Sindure. And so, I was absorbing. I felt myself absorbing a lot more than usual because I was kind of like in this twilight state. So I didn't have my defenses up. I needed this email over there. Oh yeah, and Prabhupada's in the background. That's good. But because like I was just like, I didn't have mental defenses up. So I was absorbing, and I was just maybe especially appreciating like this is trans-phenomenal sound vibration. Everything from Srila Prabhupada, our current link to the Parampara Srila Prabhupada, right? So that's everything from Srila Prabhupada, just like Jesus. It's a different Parampara, but then we're even more fortunate because like, yeah, we got so many published books, we got so many recordings of conversations and like that. So here's like a pure devotee, and just his whole life and his vibrations are so documented, and for historical purpose that's important, but then like just we have access, we have access in so many, for such full availability. And so yeah, so accessing the vibration of the pure devotee through his books, or the form, through the Morti, through the picture, then we're accessing, then we're connecting. That's what surrender means. Okay, then we're connecting with that timeless realm that is not part of the machine made of material energy. It's not part of material space or time. Okay, and again, to the extent we cultivate sattva gun, sattvic habits, sattvic thoughts, sattvic worldviews, then we approach that. And this is more than that. Right? This is the energy. Right? This is Krishna's Bhakti energy. And so that's how we surrender, and that's how we increase our desire to surrender to the super soul within, to surrender to our highest good. Right? That's what we talked about. This class started on freedom. To the extent that we allow ourselves to be influenced by Rajas and Tamas, we might think we're free, but then we're just slaves. Right? Then our idea of freedom is I'm a slave to what my eyes want. I'm a slave to what the tongue, to what the belly, to what the mind. Right? So real freedom is the capacity to commit to my highest good. And the highest good is like living in such a way where I'm out of the machine, and I'm living in simple, loving devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we connect with Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, connect with any vibration, any instruction from Srila Prabhupada. So what we're doing here, hearing Bhagavad Gita, and then we're fulfilling our highest honor, our highest duty. So, okay, so this verse again, text 61, chapter 18. Again, if anyone's into learning verses, this is a fine one to learn. Prabhupada uses the lot Ishvara Sarvabhutanam. Redesha Arjuna Tishtati. Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Hare Krishna, thank you for your presence and attention. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to share any comments or realizations or ask any questions. Garuda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Dhira Govinda, for your class. I'm appreciating just, I know I've heard it a dozen, 2 dozen, dozens and dozens of times of, Krishna is situated in our hearts, Paramatma. That's what I'm like really focusing on. I went through kind of a online program with a men's organization, and something that I was really appreciating about what they were helping men do is get out of their heads and connect to their heart and that inner voice. I guess men have the tendency, I'm probably women too, but I guess in this particular organization is focused on men's work, but some men have the tendency to get kind of lost in a mechanical way of approaching life in their heads, and really helping them move from their head to their heart through different processes, physically touching, the body and focusing on it. And yeah, they don't really have any clear like definition of like the guidance. I mean, some of them refer to it as like inner guidance, some higher power guidance. Some of them refer to, God speaking to me through my heart, in my heart. And so I'm just kind of connecting to that, like how that it with this particular organization, it's like the essential like process that they help men go from their head to their heart. So I was just kind of like connecting to that with this particular verse. I'm kind of appreciating that. How this philosophy, there's so much clear definition of like and perspective of that. It's just, for me, it's like more helpful, like, it's like I don't want to just guess what's happening inside my heart, if it's me or something higher. I want to know clearly, like, what is this communication that I'm connecting to? At least me personally, that's my experience. And then also I wanted to ask, you had expressed that tennis pro, I believe it was a tennis pro, met Srila Prabhupada, and he told this tennis pro that the two main things are to understand karma and how it works, like the perspective of it, have a clear idea of like how karma works, and then don't be angry at the instrument of your karma. Is that the wording that you used?
That's the wording I used. I think that's the wording. Again, we don't have this recorded from Prabhupada, but I trust Peter Burwash. But I think that's pretty much the exact wording that's in the foreword. It's the foreword to the second edition of Relationships That Work, which we published in 2017. Yeah, his name's Peter Burwash, and he wasn't famous as a tennis pro. He was on the tour, but he did become worldwide famous. He became he established the most successful tennis teaching company on the planet. And even very famous tennis pros also established teaching organizations, but his was, it still goes on, was more successful. So yeah, what he said that Prabhupada told him, and it changed his life, was spiritual life begins when you understand the law of karma. 2, don't be angry at the instrument of your karma. And
yeah, I have a question about that.
Sure.
I understand the law of karma. I can like visualize, I can like conceive of it. Like I have a clear idea of like, okay, I understand that, but I'm a little bit kind of hazy at the instrument of my karma. Is it the instrument of karma itself and how it works, or the instrument? I'm just kind of a little bit kind of not really understanding that clearly. If you could say more about like the instrument.
sure.
About
Yeah, thanks. I'll share my understanding, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. So Burwash at the time, he was experiencing a lot of bitterness and resentment, anger, because a so-called friend, business partner cheated him out of a lot of money. He was like innocent, naive. He got cheated. He got swindled. And so I believe, I mean, yeah, there's also the whole workings of karma, but Prabhupada was talking about, like the human instrument of your karma. Don't be angry. Now, Prabhupada's not saying anger can't be used in devotional service. There is a time for healthy anger used in devotional service. Hanuman, Arjuna, Srila Prabhupada would get angry to make a point and to move people. So there is, of course, healthy anger. But Prabhupada's making the point that if we're getting angry at the instrument of our karma, then we're perpetuating the cycle. Basically, I've been hurt, now I'll hurt you. Then later this life, or maybe in a future life, then you'll hurt me back, and then I'll like that. So that's where Prabhupada's going with this, and we can see, in the lives of great devotees, so many examples of this. So that's my understanding. But so basically, like right in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, karma can be destroyed, right? Of the 5 essential topics of Bhagavad Gita, 4 are eternal, and 1 is temporary, and the one that's temporary is karma. And so if we learn the art and science how to not perpetuate karma, how to not create more of it through machine-like reactivity, then we destroy our karma. Then we step out of it. And then we can reconnect with it if we go back to the lower modes. And in that part of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is, he's emphasizing. He doesn't even talk about, like, if we're on the level of prema, love of Krishna, then no more karma. He just says sattva, just cultivating knowledge, just cultivating awareness, just cultivating knowledge. So my understanding from Burwash was coming to him with like a very immediate charged situation. And Prabhupada was saying, yeah, okay, so this person who cheated, that doesn't make him right or good, doesn't make what he did ethical. No, what he did was he should be in prison. That's all of that. That's all of that. And for your process, don't be angry at the instrument of your karma. And it might mean you might take action to get back the $200,000. You might take action to put him in prison. You might do that, but internally accept that I'm the source of this, and like that. Does that respond to what you asked?
Yeah, I guess I think what I'm hearing for me, what I'm understanding is be an acceptance of whatever results of the karma that you're creating for yourself. Is that, it's like, so you won't kind of get in the place of being angry because you're taking 100% responsibility at that point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It goes together with, I stand 100% responsible for my experience and for the results and for the results, and for the context. I'm responsible for this karma. I created it. I'm the source of it. And then Prabhupada said that's a joyful, powerful foundation for spiritual life. Thank you, Garuda Prabhu. Rasa Sindhu.
Thank you for apologize for my tardiness. I lost track of time this morning and got delayed. A few things stand out to me. The idea of heart having nerves.
Yeah.
Is actually there was a recent research that came out last year that said that more heart activity corresponds to brain activity as opposed to brain. Yeah. So there's more. Right. There's memories stored in the heart region. Actually, there are cells that stored memories in the heart itself. So yeah, there's more happening there. So thank you for bringing that to light. That heart is such an important and vital piece of, not just in colloquial language, as we said, that you put your heart into, but it's literally even in the physiology. Even in the physiology of it, we put our hearts into situations. I really appreciated your examples of the body and then how in the lower modes we really identify with the machine aspects. Yeah. And then in the higher modes we live with the distinction and rejoice in the distinction. And then I appreciated Garuda Prabhu's question of seeing the instruments of our karma and then how do we deal. I have a question in that regard. One thing that comes to my mind is an example of Srila Prabhupada, let's say when he decided to take sannyasa, when he decided to leave his home. Yeah. His wife sold his copy of Bhagavatam for some tea and biscuits. Yeah. And that was the point when Srila Prabhupada decided, this is it. This is the end of my family life. And then he moved to Allahabad and he traveled and eventually ended up taking sannyas. So what would that be a reaction? Would that be a karmic reaction? Or would that be a prompting of the super soul? And Prabhupada was visibly upset and angry, of course he didn't carry that anger because he inquired about his wife as years progressed from his kids.
Yeah.
That make sure she's taken care of. Even his disciples he informed that make sure that.
Yeah.
So he didn't carry that resentment, he didn't carry that anger. So
Right.
is that an example that don't be angry at the instrument of your karma, or is that not even karmic? Is that something beyond karma?
Okay. Thanks for your sharing. And I appreciate what you're appreciating about the comments and discussion. And yeah, so of course, with okay, I see there's different levels which we can, discuss this. So with Srila Prabhupada, there's no material karma, In a recent class, we gave the example of like Jad Bharat, right? Transcendental platform, but Krishna kind of used his karma not in a machine-like way to further his devotional enthusiasm. And so here, we view Srila Prabhupada as an eternal liberated devotee of Krishna. Well, within the pastime, okay, the way I see it. So he experienced anger like that. And the way I said, my understanding was he wrote a manuscript of the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, in those days, there wasn't photocopies like that. And then you described what his wife did like that. And so we can imagine, like, so I see that as like Prabhupada's experience anger. It's well, two things come to it. It's devotional anger in that because it's one thing like you insulted my ego like that, but it's another thing like you're interfering with devotional service. It's like Prabhupada's heart and soul was serving the mission of Bhakti Siddhanta. That's his heart and soul, and Bhaktisiddhanta wants him to write in English, so he did a whole Bhagavad Gita by hundreds and hundreds of pages, and then someone interferes with that service. So like that's anger, that's anger in devotional service, and we can see, as you described, Prabhupada responded to that anger to commit himself even more fully. I mean, in spiritual life, there's 100%. There's complete commitment, and then there's more complete and more complete like that. So his internal response to that anger was to commit himself even more fully to the mission of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. So I don't see karma working. We can see Krishna working there through the super soul in the heart. We can see Krishna working. I don't see material karma working. And as far as the anger, it's one thing like anger because it's not like you're interfering with my service like in a material ego sense, but if we can see like if that's a real offense. And like saying, I didn't notice this, Prabhu, I didn't offer obeisances, or my foot accidentally touched the body. Okay, like there's incidental, transgressions. But like if we're through our words or our actions, we're trying to interfere with the sincere devotee's service, then that like Krishna doesn't like that. Okay, yeah. So then and like when Jaga and Madai injured Nityananda, and they're trying to stop the kirtan. Okay, then Lord Chaitanya, then he's the merciful incarnation. He got angry. That's devotional anger. Yeah, and then Prabhupada used the anger to commit himself even more directly, like that. That's my understanding.
So interference of devotional service may or may not be karma, but how Prabhupada utilized and how we utilize that interference to expand their service.
Yeah.
And to commit themselves to their service is the real lesson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rasa Sindhu. Anandini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I appreciate your class very much and what you shared. And it's like a confirmation and a deepening of understanding of an experience I had recently. And I was, I like since some time, that's a theme, like the disappearance pastimes of Lord Jesus Christ and Srila Prabhupada. And yesterday Malini spoke about Krishna's disappearance pastime, and there's so much suffering and cruelty that comes to light with that. And for me a big challenge in progressing in spiritual life is accepting suffering.
Accepting suffering, yeah.
Accepting that, and it's like 2 weeks ago or so, I made a decision. I said, okay, Krishna, I'm ready to let go of my resistance to suffering. I'm tired of resisting it. And also I want to give up this idea that I have that Krishna is not taking care of me.
Okay.
Somehow he takes care of everyone, but not of me. And at the same night, the same evening, I had a panic attack at night. So I was like sleeping tamas and lots of fear, and I couldn't sleep all night. And then the second night, and 3 nights, for 3 nights. And in the third night, I thought, okay, so what's the message here? And I started to chant. And as soon as I started to chant, my whole system calmed down. And I just understood this is the way Krishna is responding to my commitment to come to peace with suffering, and also to see, like to accept that he's also taking care of me. And I understood that this is how he was taking care of me. Like, and from like the first 2 nights, I was in the, like material perspective, maybe thinking, oh, that's a punishment.
Punishment.
Something wrong. Why is this happening to me?
There's a mistake here. There's
Yeah, and then the third night was like a total shift to, oh, this is Krishna taking care of me, and it really felt like that. Like the internal experience was, I felt loved and taken care of and guided, and I got like so much, like clarity about what to do with this condition. And like your class was just helping me to get clear on this. I don't say I have learned the lesson fully, but something has happened.
I appreciate your sharing. It's very impactful. A panic attack, that's a lot of suffering. That's a lot of suffering, a lot of intense anxiety, acute anxiety, powerless anxiety. And okay, and so you're trying to fix it. And now in the third night, okay, then you got inspiration from Super Soul, responding with your sincerity to, okay, let me respond to this by taking shelter in chanting Hare Krishna. And then you take shelter there, then you see, oh, even the anxiety, even the panic attack, that is Krishna taking care of me, really compassionately wanting me to see, like, the material life, it's a place of suffering, it's a place of misery, and the opportunity is to take shelter in me. And so Krishna is loving you through all of this. Thanks for sharing, Anandini. Thank you.
And also something else. Recently, I've had like a neighbor and a client and people in my life who come with heart problems.
Yes.
Heart problems, and they go to the doctor and there's nothing wrong, and you saying that, it's like doctors can describe chanting the Maha Mantra.
Yeah,
it's really inspiring, and I'm considering how I can communicate to them. Chant.
Apart from what you believe or not believe, and apart from the eternal spiritual benefit, scientific studies have established that it actually helps heart health, and that you can say that truly. It's published. Thank you, Anandini. Rasa Sindhu, then Garuda.
One of the things that stands out to me, a few things I think is as you give the example, or not the example, the almost the fact now that the doctors can prescribe the Krishna Maha Mantra. And as I was reading about, and I was preparing for Narari Sarkar's Thakur's disappearance, he disappeared during the day of this Ekadashi, and I was reading about him, and he was born in a family of doctors.
Of doctors, wow.
His elder brother,
Yes.
Mukunda Das, was a
Okay.
a doctor.
Yeah.
That entire region in Navadvip called Srikhanda is known for doctors. That was established so that all doctors could live there. And when he appeared in a family of doctors, one of the things that they would do is chant Hare Krishna as a practice.
Wow.
And today happens to be his disappearance day.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it's very
So connected there.
timely and,
Yeah.
and opportune that this same conversation happened. I was also reflecting that I really was feeling the urge to speak about him, and I was preparing, and I realized that it's my own tardiness that came in the way of it. And I'm thinking that what am I angry about?
Mhm.
Am I angry about my being late, not reading emails? What am I angry about? And I think the class again helps me understand that don't be angry at the
Instrument of your karma.
instrument of
Yeah.
your karma, and realize the lesson that's coming up here. So I think it's happening at a few meta levels.
Few
That
meta
this
levels.
class is hitting me, and at the same time, opportune and timely, the conversation is taking place here. So I'm just appreciating Krishna's workings, and again the question that I previously asked about whether this is Krishna's part or this is karma, and it's both, or sometimes it's hard to judge.
Yeah.
Hard to gauge it, and at the same time, it's the lesson that
Yeah.
we can continue in applying. So again, there's
Meta
levels, meta analysis and meta interactions happening for me as I'm sitting here today.
I appreciate your very real time sharing. Very real time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah. Like all the medicine, all the professions, they're there. Like we look at the astrologers in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's always described before they give a reading, they meditate on super soul. Right? So it's not just the mechanics of the chart. Same with, and I appreciate your sharing, Narahari Sarkar, family of doctors. It's not just knowing the veins and the arteries, the physiology, meditating on the heart, best way, chant Hare Krishna. Garuda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I was wondering if you could share the article with us of the scientific I guess prescription that the Maha Mantra could be used. I think that's kind of fun to share just with everybody I know. I just think it'd be fun. And what's also coming up for me is like something that I have identified with in my life is like victim consciousness a lot. Like I was really kind of consumed with it when I was young, and kind of moving out of it. So that's what's kind of coming up for me regarding like, not being angry at the instrument of my karma, and then understanding like the law of karma, like really understanding it fully. And for me, it's like I can remember like, going to the seminars, the advanced seminar that came up for me. It was like, just kind of like this whole new like way, this new perspective of seeing karma, and seeing it as like, everything, like everything that I'm experiencing in my life in the past and in the present is Krishna's mercy, and it's Krishna like helping me. And even though it looks like, it's like he's punishing me, Krishna is like, everything that Krishna does for me and all of us is just, he wants us back. He wants our relationship back. So he's giving us this opportunity, and sometimes it looks like, hell. But maybe that's what we need, or I need. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Garuda. Yeah, another analogy often used, like the whole material world is called Durga, prison house. So ideally, prison house is a place of suffering, but ideally, it's not intrinsically meant to punish. It's not for eternal damnation. It's meant for prisoners to wake up and to be law-abiding citizens, and that's for their own happiness. And so that's for their own happiness. Oh yeah, it's for rehabilitation. Now I can go out and be a contributing member of society. And so at least ideally the king or the government ministers or even the security guards, even in giving the suffering of prison, it's constrained. They're actually coming from a compassionate heart. And that's true in the cosmic sense. Srishti, Stiti, Pralaya, Sadhana, Shaktireka. And that Durga, the warden of the prison house, she's actually a great devotee of Krishna, and she wants us to liberate ourselves from the machine more than we do. And her role is to help us understand what the material machine's about.
That point, the Honorable Swami economic term called that this universe is a cosmic sensitivity training ground, and it's training us at every moment of, as you mentioned, Durga. The role of Durga Devi is to train. Prabhupada used to call her the jailer.
Yeah.
This material world is the prison house, and then she's the jailer, and the jailer is meant to teach us. And sometimes that victim consciousness that Prabhupada mentioned, that being in the jail, we can consider ourselves as a victim, or as you previously shared, to accept that responsibility. And then the jailer sees that this person has accepted responsibility, and that is really the trigger point where the jailer allows you or creates a way for that particular entity to get out of it. So it's example came to my mind of cosmic sensitivity training. Yeah, with Durga as the facilitator and Super Soul Krishna as the supreme facilitator. Shaivayasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Chanrupamapyasya Chachesta, and she's doing it all for the pleasure of Krishna, and providing the perfect process for each of us. I like that. Thank you.
It seems that as long as we are victim, we have very little sincerity to get out. In a sense. I remember when I did a juvenile detention center, like 5-day course.
Yeah.
It was a boy there, and at the end of the course, he came to me and he said, I realize everything that's happened to me. I can see how I choose bad association.
Yeah.
And, he was 17, so he was sentenced of, I don't remember, 2 or 4 years of level 10 prison. They will be with adults, very high criminal, because he was attacking people with gun. He was doing, and I could see the moment he connected with that, he also connected, oh, I'm going to be very serious and study and pass my GED. Yeah. But my sense is that if you will have stayed in that victim consciousness, that sense of like, I'm going to study for my GED will not have been there. You will have continued to, I'm a tough guy, I'm victim, and not accepting
to perpetuate the whole thing.
To perpetuate the same thing. And because of the course, he came to a place of really high level of, I did that. And my poor mother is going to suffer because of what I did. Then he was already looking for a brighter future, which wasn't there before.
Yeah, came to acceptance.
Yeah. So like for the spirit soul, it's like we need to accept we are suffering and accept we are the cause of our suffering. Yeah. And that's opened the window for sincerity about like, let me create a different experience, different reality.
Yeah. Appreciate that example. Just for those who don't know the context, back in 2006, Mother Malini conducted a foundational seminar in a youth prison, in a juvenile detention center here in North Florida, just providing some context. Thanks for that sharing. Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you all.
Hare Krishna.